What's going on, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know who it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by MSOTD Rocks, where rock and metal thrive. Happy Thursday once again, everybody. It is January 21st, and this one is absolutely incredible. So today I get to sit down with the rock band Devil's Envy. Rock, metal, they cover a lot of it, and they are absolutely fantastic. Sean and Angel from the band stopped by the podcast, and man, I thought we were going to talk about music in one way, and we talked about so many other different things. We talked about their writing style. We went in deep with what it's like to get personal on music and how different that writing style is. And then we really did something different here that I was absolutely a fan of that gives me an idea to do something a little bit later in the year. Well, later next couple of months or so. Talking about the idea behind promoting music and behind getting behind independent bands, help them rise top, and also understanding where record labels are coming from in this position as well. There's a whole bunch on this, and it's going to be a potential preview for something to happen later on in March or April, but it is an absolutely fantastic conversation. I mean, if you like Joe Rogan's conversations with people where all of a sudden they get on some topics and you're like, oh my God, I never thought about it that way, this is an episode for you. Are you guys ready? Because you better be. So let's go. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. That, what do we call it? A partnership that we've had with MVK Music that has seen so many great bands come to the podcast has yielded yet another one out of Central Florida. So please welcome Angel and Sean from the band Devil's Envy. So guys, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
So
thanks for having us.
How's everything going out there in Central Florida these days?
Surprisingly cold.
Yeah.
Surprisingly cold. What do you think is surprisingly cold? I gotta ask.
It's not cold enough.
Well, for us, low 60s.
Come up by me where it's like high of 24, 23 degrees consistently.
Yeah, I used to live in Boston I used to be a flight attendant, and I remember the day I had to walk out to the bus station to get to the airport, get to Logan, and it was negative 20. My Florida boy did not like that at all.
Oh yeah, was that 2 years ago when they had the polar vortex thing go on?
It was like 4 or 5 years ago, but I also coincidentally had strep throat at the time.
Ooh.
And I was flying home, and that was the worst experience ever. And I love Boston, but my God, I don't know how you all live up north or wherever you live in Midwest where it gets just absolutely bone chilling cold, because it hits 60 here, people start freaking out.
I'll put it this way: we live where the air hurts our face, because then we don't have random animals trying to kill us.
Right. That's a good way to look at it.
No alligators, no crocodiles, no weird snakes, no weird insects that carry some crazy disease. No, by the time winter rolls around, they're completely wiped out because no one wants to deal with snow. Why we deal with it, I think that's the reason why we put up with our face hurting because of the air and having to shovel snow. And when I walk out of the house looking up, seeing icicles, thinking, is today the day one's going to fall off and basically just go straight through my head? So that's why I hang out the window at nights and with a shovel trying to knock them all down just to make sure that in the morning I'm not going to die.
That one's fun.
Hey, it's the life of living in the Midwest. So before we really jump into Devil's Envy and the music, I always like to do this to get the audience to know you guys a little bit more. So I always ask 3 questions of you guys, and you guys take turns with your introductions. So I want to know what your name is, what you do in the band. Those are the 2 easy ones. And the third one is, I want to know a real wacky story or real wacky fact that you guys have about yourselves, because I always hear some crazy interesting things, like people being famous on YouTube in Sweden before PewDiePie became a thing. All these famous Instagram cats and dogs and Twitter cats and dogs. The Tinder bios are always my favorite. But if you don't have Tinder, totally understandable. Those are always my favorite though, because they're just absolutely ridiculous. So I'll let you guys take it away with whatever you got.
Hi, my name's Hot Rod, and I like to party. No, my name is Angel, and I attended Juilliard in my in my former years. No, also kidding. I'm just the lead singer, songwriter of the band, co-founder along with my pal here, Shawnee Boy, who also
Thunder Buddies to the end.
Thunder Buddies till the end.
Fucking right. mean, I
You
feel
know
like
what's funny is Sean actually writes the riffs and I write a lot of the drums, and then we just play them on stage, vice versa.
really.
That is true. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it
kind of
is
like a
true.
mix. It depends on the song. It's funny. But like sometimes he'll come in with like a sick drum part, and I'll be like, okay, well, here's a guitar part.
That's
It's fluid.
how Psycho came about. Actually, speaking of
Yep.
which,
Well, I kind of want to jump into that already then. So, how did Psycho come to be, especially with that sort of a songwriting process? Because, especially with you guys writing each other's parts in a completely different way, in that sense, it seems like at first something that doesn't make sense. However, there's a lot of times where things don't make sense in the mind, but then all of a sudden you hear them played out, and you're just thinking, "Holy shit, this made total sense."
yeah, that's how that's funny you say that because that's how the process is going right now. Even well, actually, like last 2 months when we were writing the record, um, Paul would come in with the bass part and I couldn't get it. I was like, at first, Sean, I would sit there and like, are you sure, man? Like, seems kind of boring right now. And then after a while, like they'll let me sit with it. And once everybody's gone out of the room, and I'll sit with it and turn like a couple bass parts into a full song, or Sean will give me a riff and I come back the next day and it's a whole song, like vocals and everything. And it's just been like that. Like they'll give, we give each other bits and pieces to work with, and that's how usually it'll come about. And that's how it went with Dead Inside. That's how it went with Psycho and
Yep.
Look at Me Now. It just started out with just like little basic form of an idea, just a riff. And usually those are like our catchiest song. Those are us. It's just like the simplicity of just grabbing something and then just building upon that instead of trying to come up with a full song to scale. It's just that's how it worked for us.
I've always been a big proponent of that as well, where when it comes to songwriting, you let it happen naturally. You don't try and force a lot of things in there. You don't try and force everything to work in the way you want it to work, because there have been times where all of a sudden you see some experimentation that people go with and it seems like it doesn't work, but if it naturally progresses and it feels like it's so natural and going into it, it's going to end up working. But there's times where people try and throw certain things into certain areas. It's like they have a strict idea of what they want to do, and they're going to go forward in that direction, even if the song doesn't feel like it's going to go in that way. And then you release it and you think, oh, that's not necessarily working out the way you thought it would. But when you let the song just progress the way that it's progressing, that's when things really pick up naturally, because your ears are going to hear it, your body's going to feel it, and your mind's going to be like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right, man. That's how it usually goes. Like there's the one song that we're gonna release soon called Night Stalkers. It started like that with just a simple bass idea. And at first, like we took the idea and then we just hit it with like it kept developing into like one left, one left turn into another left turn and just kept going. And then we hit the bridge and it was just like total, just like it hits you. And it's like, and it's a good blend, a good change. And there's only so much I can say to explain it without you like hearing it. But when you hear it, you're going to be like, oh, okay, so this is what, they were talking about. But that's how we've approached that one that way, and so we've been kind of um using that formula for like certain songs, and then we'll try something else like with different songs and not try to stick to one formula. So it's been rather experimental, but we do keep it within the what do they call it, like mainstream ranges, just to kind of make it still accessible to like just not freak them out too much. I mean, like, so that we're not brushed off. It's like, okay, it's one of those weird bands, and then just look past it. So we still kind of keep it in the 3 minute, 4 minute mark without trying to go overboard.
Yeah, it's like you want to keep it within a same certain realm so that you're not going to end up being like, okay, we're going to play this song that sounds like a 3 or 4 minutes long and it sounds exactly like we sound. And the next song is going to be like a minute and a half, like straight up punk rock tune, followed by a 15-minute long Tool inspired song. Cause that's just going to be, I'm going to be like, wait, what? Wait, and I'm just going to get confused at that point. So I totally understand where it comes, but you want to maintain that experimental style in terms of writing so that you can figure out certain things as you go along, and potentially even going forward, you're going to try certain things when you try these different writing styles. At first, it might not work out, but you might learn a couple of things that you might be able to put into certain songs in different writing style as well. And all of a sudden, they just work out. And the only reason they work out is because you tried it beforehand and you see how it interacts with each song in a different way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Night Stalkers was kind of one of those songs where it wasn't written slowly, but it was intended to be something 100% different than what it turned out to be. And then we all fell in love with kind of how it happened, because that was one of the first songs, primarily, that every member of the band had significant chunks of that song um, contributed to. A lot of the writing, since this band has been formed, was from me and Angel, because we formed the band back in 2014, out of the ashes of another band we used to be in together, which is how we met. And for years it was a lot of, I had an idea, I'd bring it in the studio, Angel would have an idea, he'd bring it in, I'd either write some drums to it, or I'd have a guitar riff, or he'd have a drum beat and I somehow had a riff that kind of coincided with that. And it's kind of cool when you as the band's evolved from playing like our influences to where we're at a point where we have our own sound, but you can still hear our influences, uh, is really rewarding. And it's more rewarding that we brought people into this band, and I don't mean just the current members, the people that we've had in this band beforehand, that have contributed greatly to the music that we make. It was one of those first songs that you got every working part of that band to contribute a little bit of their soul to that song, and it just turned out in a way we didn't expect, and it came out of nowhere. And Angel sent it to me once he mixed it, and I was kind of like blown away, not in a way that I think everybody's gonna like this song, but it was just cool for that to finally happen. And it was, everything gelled really good, so it was a good feeling. And that made me be a big proponent of not getting in the way of the music to fit some certain genre that you want to pertain to. So
Oh,
it
easily. And I
yeah.
would have to, I mean, for my standpoint, I have to agree with that as well, because you're going to hear your influences in there as well, because that's what helped form that sound that you have. However, what ends up happening is you end up mixing all these different influences together, from Sean, from you, or from Angel, or from whoever else it was in the band or was in the band at some point. And there's just a kind of contribution that comes in. It's like a whole melting power. All of a sudden, boom, you're going to come up with this whole sound that is yourself. And then at some point, bands are going to be listening to you and are going to be taking influence from what you guys did in terms of the writing style that you created, in terms of the sounds that you create as well, and that bass sound that you have, and even some of the experimental stuff that you work off of that bass sound. I mean, take a look at some bands like A Day to Remember, where all of a sudden they took like metalcore, pop, punk, post-hardcore, mix it all into one, and all of a sudden, boom, they're one of the biggest bands out there right now. It stuff like that happens, but it's all because you take different influences, you bring them together, and you end up creating something that is entirely your own. And then people will even take influence off of what you guys have done and with the writing style that you guys go with, because it is something that is more unique than many other writing styles that I've heard of in the past.
Thanks, man. It's
Appreciate
nice
it.
to get some outside ears to like and voice their thorough opinion, not just because everybody can be honest. They can be honest because if they skim it off the top, but this is definitely a band you have to really let absorb into your ear holes, and not just it's like one of those bands that's like it's an acquired taste. It's like listening to like Guns N' Roses or Metallica or Avenged Sevenfold, even Pantera. Like, it's not a band that you put on right away and everybody's gonna dig it. It's a band, our sound is definitely something like you have to listen to, and then you go back and question, like, wait, what was that? And then you listen to it again. And after like 6 or 7 listen throughs, and this is just paraphrasing off of other people that I've shown our music to, like from family members to management in the industry to A&Rs, and they came back and said, you know what, I listened to the songs you sent me like a year ago. Damn, dude, like, okay, damn, you got some going. We've shown even when Zach used to be in the band, and he was showing it to some of his friends. And when he was touring with Falling Reverse, I think it was also like an acquired listening. Like after a while, it's like, hey, you know what? We kind of jammed this through. It's like it's actually pretty dope, you know, like the because he helped us write Dead Inside and Look at Me Now, and actually the first EP was he was on there, and the Beetlejuice track that we did. Um, and we released that after he had we parted ways with him. But yeah, it's like our influences, like we take to heart like what they were trying to do, not just, oh, this band is like so on the hype right now because they're writing with all this stuff and they're writing poppy vocals or like a lot of electronic stuff. And we're we're a band that appreciates a lot of the organics of being in a rock band and not so much the uh, relying on post production edit. Not that it's there's nothing wrong with it. That's just not our cup of tea, and it might be because of our generation, how we grew up, or the bands that we've worked with, or the bands we admire. We just love the overall organic sound of a true arena rock and roll band. Like if you get up on stage and all you hear most is their instruments just driving the audience, driving the sound system. You can feel that power through the recording, regardless of how long ago it was mixed or who's judging. You know, because you can go back and listen to some of those old records from some of the greatest bands, and you go back with the attuned ear of listening to all the modern stuff. Yeah, it might, you know, quote unquote, sound like crap, but in all honesty, when it was mixed back in the day, when they heard it, it felt good to them, and that's what I think captures their believing audience to know that, you know, they're not trying to nitpick at like how the mix sounds. They're trying to absorb what the song is saying to them. So that's how we, you know, we started. You know, we pushed the EP, even though we all agreed, like, you know, this mix could be better, the mastering could be better, but this is what we are now. Because if we wait and we try to push this at an age where we probably matured musically, it won't make sense. So we pushed it at the right time, um, and we captured the right audience for it. You know, pushing it to the right fan base, like Trivium fans, Avenged fans, My Chemical Romance fans. Like some of those fans still stuck around. Most of them on like Instagram, like when we started out as Embrace the Envy, what we used to call ourselves back when we were playing like small little bar gigs.
Well, when it comes to the whole entire thing, we're talking about acquired taste. That is definitely something that, in my opinion, is completely different than the idea of the music industry now, given how music is consumed by the consumer on through streaming, especially on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever they might be listening to. Because what people are trying to do now is whatever song they come out with, in my opinion, especially more like the pop artists that are really trying to push a lot of things, is they want to get you hooked right away, and they want to make sure everything sounds perfect. Because when you stream a song, if you don't like it right away within like the first 10 seconds, or you don't like the mix the way it is, you're just going to end up writing off that band forever, and you're going to end up jumping back to what you really care about, what you really know. Rarely now are people going to go in deep with certain bands as well, because in my opinion, the investment just isn't there. Take a look back to about 25 years ago. I mean, people are buying CDs by the dozen, and you're going to be listening through the whole entire thing because you put money down on it. That's an investment. You want to make sure you get your money's worth. So you're not going to listen to one like the first 10 seconds of the first song and then say, oh, this album is completely trash, because no, you put money into it. You want to listen to it. With streaming, you're just putting like what, $7.99 down for Spotify every single month. And then you get this whole entire library of music where you can just kind of pick and choose whatever the heck you want. For the consumer, it's great. But when it comes down to it, in terms of overall consumer behavior, when it comes to having that acquired taste, it's just, I'll put it this way, it's not something that you prevalently see right now. However, it is completely different, because when it comes to a lot of those bands, I say a lot of the artists, especially pop artists, in my opinion, that are putting that stuff out there on the streaming platforms right now, it's very overproduced, very like mastered, incredibly well done in post-production, so that you hear that you don't get the raw feel of it. But when you go more towards rock and metal, especially I would say metalcore, especially on this, it's like what you were saying, Angel, where it's when you're listening to the music in your headphones, in your earbuds, whatever it is, you can hear the power of the instruments just come through that. And then you go see live and it's the exact same feel. It's coming through from one and the other. And when it comes to rock and metal, I think it does kind of become a little bit more of an acquired taste now in the grand spectrum of things. Kind of like drinking beer or wine, because when you drink it for the first time, you're like, oh no, not this. But then after like 2-3 years, if you start drinking more beer, you're gonna end up liking more beer. That's just the way it works. So
Right.
I can definitely see with Devil's Envy because for my opinion, I can see exactly where you're coming from, Angel, where it's on that you're never if you just take a look at it at the complete surface, like on a song like Psycho, you're gonna miss out on so much. You gotta listen to it like 2-3 more times because it's kind of like watching it's kind of like watching a comedy movie when you're a kid and then watching it again when you're an adult, because you're going to pick up on so many different things that you didn't even pick up on at first. It's kind of the same way with you guys, where if you take it just at the surface, you're only going to get one level of it. But if you listen to it again and listen with a little bit of a different idea behind it, or a little bit of a different ear in a way, you're going to pick up on so much more that's going on. And with how I listen to music and how I really dive deep into stuff, like I'm listening to stuff like 3 or 4 times through, and I'm really trying to just not only hear what the lyrics are saying, but hear how the emotion behind the singing is really making it work, whether it's unclean screams or whether it's clean singing, and how the instrumentals really bring out that emotion as well in terms. So there's a lot to be had here. It's kind of like the Jelly of the Month Club from Christmas Vacation. It's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, Sean could also tell you, like, it's what our personal favorite between him and I is Dead Inside, because it came from a time and a place where we were still kind of somewhat jaded, like what was going on. Um, I was still trying to get over, like my transition in life. I had, Sean and I were actually roommates. We were living together, and uh, because I was going through a divorce, and I was like all this stuff. Like when you go through one bad thing, it's like every other bad memory just piles up on you. It's like as if it happened yesterday, and so memories, of course, of like my late brother was like coming forward, and so like all this stuff were like we were literally like drinking almost every day, right, bro? Like just like literally just like all we could do is just find reasons to just party. And after
Yeah.
a while, it caught up, and then depression sets in, and so like a lot of the lyrics from like anger and depression and all that stuff, it kind of set in. So like do yourself that favor, and not to try to create like a fandom here, but even your viewers, your listener, listen to Dead Inside, like really listen to it, read those lyrics, put on some good like headphones or whatever, get that low end pumping, and absorb that song. And in whatever moment in time you are in your life and you listen to that song, that's what we were feeling when that song came about. And so when you do, like, we'll challenge all your viewers, like, to hit us up, send us a message, like, I see what you were going with now so far. Hence why the EP was called Dead Inside. And there's there's so much going on in that song, layer upon layer, like layers of guitars, like even from those little nuances to what, especially how the vocals are being pushed. um a lot of that was sang like through like pure and raw emotion. There wasn't a lot of post production or tuning or anything like that. It was just straightforward because of where I was up here. So it was just like it was as raw as I wanted it to be. So you listen to a song like that, and then you go in and then you approach every other song that way, you'll get it. You'll get what we're going with, coming forward now, and then you'll understand like what we're going to be coming out with like in the near future as well.
And Sean, I gotta ask you this: when it came to writing "Dead Inside," what was your mindset going through that as well? And then after that, I've got a whole entire connection to make with it as well, with a song that I listened to in 2020 that I called the Song of the Year for the exact same reason why "Dead Inside" hit so hard with so many people. So I want to get to that, but I want to ask Sean first: what was it like writing "Dead Inside," and what was it like going through the process of writing a song that really goes in deep with so many different emotions, so many different feelings, and so much personal experience that goes into it?
Yeah, that's actually kind of an interesting topic to broach, because that song Angel was. We had a little mini studio set up in our living room at that apartment, and I was in my room. We were all hanging out. It was me, Angel, Zach, our buddy Alex, um, and it was very strange. We'd all been like kind of drinking. We weren't partying, but we were hanging out and drinking. And I was in my room, and I happened to hear Angel play some certain riff, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And then I kind of made a derivative off of that riff, and I literally ran out to the living room. I said, "Dude, just plug everything in and record this." So he records that riff, which was the opening riff for Dead Inside, and it was very quick. We didn't work on it much at all that night. I gave him a drum idea. I had the riff. Zach contributed a pretty like real heavy but kind of raw bass line, and we kind of left it like right at the chorus where it hits. I come home from work like a day and a half later, and Angel's got the chorus written. He's got words written, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is kind of blown away." But it was weird because it kind of touched where I was going through, because I was diagnosed a couple years after that with I was clinically diagnosed with OCD, and that not the the hand washing germophobia stuff, but more a more debilitating form of OCD. So that's not what that song was written about, but you can certainly infer a lot of those lyrics to my experience. So that song became really, really, really close to my heart, and I knew obviously that the lyrics were deep to Angel's heart. We both have had mental illness. I don't know if he's comfortable sharing his story, but it was written about a lot of things. Like he said, he was going through a divorce. We were masking a lot of things with partying, and we had our share of good times. There's no doubt about that. But I think that's kind of the beauty in music, is that, especially for this band, it allowed both of us an outlet to kind of talk about hard things like that, and that people may pick up on, that don't feel comfortable talking about things with people. I struggled with that for years, but that's always going to be a song that's going to be close to my heart. It's very heavy. I like that we kept the chorus pretty mainstream and accessible, to reach more people. Not everything needs to be super hard and full of curse words and whatever like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's needed, man. Sometimes you need a corn mood, and sometimes you need you need a Limp Biscuit mood. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you need to listen to some what people would call corny shit, and just enjoy yourself, man. Like, I listen to Nickelback all the time. People are like, "Oh, that band sucks." I'm like, well, maybe they do, but I enjoy it. So it's not the most brilliant songwriting ever, but it's damn good. It's better than I can do, I think. So I think that's the beauty of music, man, is a lot of different and deep emotions can be portrayed in a song like Dead Inside, that's kind of heavy but still very melodic and very accessible to people. So
No, very. I was gonna say very much so. And when it comes to, like, because the song that I picked for the song of the year for 2020 was a song called "Above My Head" by Polaris, and that song deals with going through depression and like feeling like everything is coming down around you and you can't deal with it anymore, and you're weighing over your head trying to get through that. And just hearing how everything worked out in that song, in connection with the lyrics, in connection with how the vocals were sung, not only from the verses but the chorus, as well, how the Napoleonic guitars worked within to create that feel. Everything that I went through between mid 2017 to about March or April of 2018, with just, I'll put it this way. Life just took a complete left turn where everything was coming down around me, and I was trying to realize if life, like going into adulthood, was just completely something that was just horrible. And just to go dealing with that, I was felt way overwhelmed with it. Suicidal tendencies happened, and listening to that song, it kind of takes me back to that time, but it really gives, like what I always say, it gives a tangible explanation to emotions that are intangible or really hard to explain to people. It's like, well, what was it like to go through this? Listen to this song and you'll figure it out. And the reason that is because the themes that are being brought up in those songs, like Above My Head by Polaris, like Dead Inside by Devil's Envy, that's you guys. Want to make sure everyone knows that. But when you bring up a lot of personal things that are going on, people are gonna connect with those in their own way, because maybe they've gone through something very similar, or they've gone through those emotions very similar to what you guys went through as well. And then there's going to be that innate connection where all of a sudden they're going to feel like you are directly talking to them, and you're really giving them an aspect in mind, like, okay, this is what I went through and see how far I've come. And it just kind of gives in a way, it kind of gives a hope to a lot of people. And then when they see you live, there's just this innate connection between you guys and the fans and just that song. And everyone just has a super emotional connection to it that's strong because how everyone feels with it. And it's something that is incredibly powerful too, because especially in today's day and age, especially with us being almost in a whole entire year with this coronavirus pandemic, people are feeling less connected than ever. And with music, people are really connecting back to themselves because they're hearing different bands express different emotions through songs, and they're really be able to kind of express those emotions to themselves or to other people as well. It really is something that really gets people connected, not only to you guys, but it helps them get connected even more to themselves.
Yeah, I think it's invaluable, especially, obviously nobody could have predicted last year, but that kind of connection through something is widespan is music. I think is really invaluable to people, and I think you hit it right on the head. A lot of people don't, they've been locked in their homes, they've lost their jobs, they've lost family members, they've, topple that on everything they had going in their personal lives before that. Like people like me and Angel that have, had struggles with mental illness and stuff like that, and personal life things, divorce. I think anything that can connect people at that raw emotional level is very, very important in this day and age. Because you're 100% right. People in the state, they don't talk to each other anymore. Even before this, I think social media is a great thing. It's also been the advent of people not communicating with each other and understanding each other. It's very easy to judge somebody or think you know everything because you saw it on the internet. And we've lost that human to human personal connection of understanding where people come from, and we've stopped learning about other people. So.
Oh God, exactly. And I think that's another big reason why we need live shows to come back as well, because when people go to live shows, they connect with bands in so many different ways, in so many different positive ways, where if I go to a live show and see Rise Against, and the others bring up Rise Against because that's my favorite band, if I go and see them, I'm going to go and see them and I have this certain positive connection with them, where everyone else is going to have a different type of connection to them, but it's all going to be positive. And when you're in a crowd at a live show, it doesn't matter where you came from, doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter anything about you. All that matters is that you're there to enjoy the music, you're there to connect with the band in a positive way, and the crowd's just going to feed off that, and everyone's going to have a great time. It's a real family environment there that I think a lot of people are missing, and it's just something that once this pandemic ends, and hopefully live shows come back soon, because hell, I'm missing them like crazy. I miss seeing my concert family that I haven't seen in almost a year at this point. It's rough, but being able just to listen to music as well and just be able to reconnect with it in different bands, just discover different bands and discover different things that bands have gone through their music, and just kind of make those connections with my own life as well. It allows me to really understand even more about myself, because I'm hearing, again, those sounds that are translating to different feelings that I had, and being able to discover certain things about myself, see how far I've come overcoming certain things about depression, overcoming suicidal tendencies, and all this other stuff as well. And it's something that whenever bands, and I'm a huge proponent of this as well, whenever bands talk very personally in their music and they really put a lot of their personal experiences in there, whether they're good or whether they're not so good, people are going to connect with them even more so than if it was something that was more bland or catchy in a way, because man, it's real. Like, it is incredibly real when people feel those emotions. And that's why you see people at concerts, when certain songs come on, like it could be the heaviest song ever, and why people are just absolutely crying their eyes out because there's such a heavy emotional connection to it, where that song could have essentially inspired them to make a change in their life, to and honestly save their life in a way.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Angel go, but yeah, you're 100% right, and it's I think people really discount the that fact of not just music. I mean, all art, but music has a real different way of connecting to people. It's more, let's say, it's more at the micro level that hits you in your soul. Like people can have very incredible. I've had amazing experiences, whether it was a poppy song or a real sad song that has just like a beautiful chorus, even though it's sad. So yeah, you're 100% right about that. People need to get back to that.
Yeah. There's a lot of well, there's quite a few that do, they'll still write with some substance in their, their lyrics and even their approach. Like, you can even hear, um, there are some songs that don't even seem sad until you really read through the lyrics, and you're like, oh shit, like, okay, this went on a deep end. But yeah, I think as long as we're staying true to what it means, and although, like, yeah, I wish, on a from an artist point of view, I wish we had the ability to reach more people with our music, and I know in due time it will. um, but maybe, maybe it didn't happen as fast for us for a reason. Maybe it was meant to hit the right amount of people at the right time, and just slowly spread from there. um, and so we're, slowly, although it might seem slow to others compared to others, but it'll hit home to the right people at the right time, I guess, even though a lot of those songs were out in like 2016, and then we started coming out with newer stuff in 2018. It's like usually like a 2-year gap in between it, even though it's not a lot. We're definitely not the content pushers. We're more the, we're pushing quality at, good amount at the right time, whatever, feels right, because we like to promote and push whatever we're releasing at that moment in time, not just, hey, we just put out this song and kind of just jump up, just kind of leave it at that, and then hurrying up and try to get the next one out. It's more like, let's see if we can push this and different meanings, behind this, and keep moving it forward, and not to compare us to like what's going on now, because I'm sure there's tons of other bands. I've recently been listening to although, like, let me clarify that I am no way, like, I am such a picky listener. Like, it's so hard for me to get into the newer bands. Like, Sean was like, "Hey, did you hear the new this?" And I'm like, "Nah, man, I'm stuck, dude. I'm either stuck in my own zone or like stuck listening to like my influences." But then again, I'll come around. I've recently listened to Wage War, and I'm like, okay, well, damn, this is cool. Maybe not my approach as far as like the style, like the delivery of it, the songwriting approach, but lyrics, like, they're really good. And I like that. I like lyrics with some substance. I've always been a fan of saying more without saying too much. I'm not a wordy lyricist. And I probably picked that up from like Maynard, or like listening to like A Perfect Circle, and like you read his lyrics, like, what the hell is he trying to say? And some of my lyrics are like that. I've had that questions like, this isn't grammatically correct. I'm like, I know, but it sounds better. It sounds easier on the ears. And I like bands that do that. There quite a bit now, maybe not so much nowadays, but it's fun to kind of find those diamonds in the rough. When you're kind of listening through like all the noise.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, kind of bringing up what you're talking about with when you write certain lyrics, like sometimes it might not be grammatically correct. I think especially in rock and metal, that's kind of really on the low end of the spectrum. However, not being grammatically correct and just tweaking certain pronunciations of words just so it fits within a certain scheme. I mean, that helped make Eminem as big as he is right now. And that helps with how his flow is because, yeah, this word, it's like it's perfect for what you need to go with it, but it just doesn't rhyme exactly the way he needs it to. He's just going to tweak the word around itself in order to make it fit. And it absolutely works. So there's times, again, where it does absolutely work. And when it comes to lyrical content, I'm always a big proponent of not being like super duper specific because then people, it's like, okay, if you weren't actually there at that moment, you're not gonna be able to relate to it, but not being like entirely like vague and abstract as well. It's a really to really just be like, what is he talking about? And then just completely forget about it. Where Maynard comes in, where it's, for me, he's rather vague, but it's what's he talking about, but you're still intrigued in order to really take a look and figure out what it is and like what he's trying to say. I like that somewhat generalness, but also somewhat of a directive approach to it as well. So it's a little bit more of that happy medium style so that I get what, like, kind of like when it comes to song, I get what you're trying to express. I get what you're saying. However, it's vague enough for me to easily relate to it in my own way and with my own experiences.
Like, look at me now is a great example of that. And uh, even maybe even Beetlejuice, if you want to listen to that one a bit. Uh, those two songs, like, you kind of read over the lyrics if you listen to it. Yeah, it has like that Pantera-esque vibe. But even like the chorus lyrics, like once you start reading through them, you're like, what was Angel trying to say here? And it just made sense to me to where it's more of uh, looking inside of one person and not really seeing what's there. Like that's what that whole song was about. And so I kept it lyrically vague on purpose. And I like rhyming. I'm very poetic when writing a lot of my lyrics, and I just love it. I do different types of it um, because like John Lennon would write a lot of his song structures were like in poetic form, so they would follow like a format we learned like would follow like a AABA format or a ABBA. And maybe some of your viewers might know what the hell I'm talking about, but if you guys don't, it's more like so you're rhyming a certain phonetic in one chunk of the song, and then the next one will go to another one, and then it'll repeat and then go back to what you were doing. You're using the same vowel ending in the first one. And once I explained that to Sean like 4 years ago, he was like, "Oh, okay, I see." It's like, why do you have to keep rhyming these four sentences? And then I explained it. It's like, well, this is what I'm doing. It goes from small, then on a grander scale, the whole song, it follows that format, but on a bigger scale. So that's like, that's, that's pretty cool. Like I said, like it's a lot of our music is definitely something you listen to, and there's like little Easter eggs, like, oh, okay, this we did here. This is why he did this with the drums, because the bass was doing that, or the guitar's doing this. So it's all like there's a method to all the madness.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I remember back when I was in grade school too, just all of a sudden, okay, we're going to, like poetry, we're going to learn rhyme schemes and what's going on here. And all of a sudden it's, already, here's this scheme, here's this scheme, here's this scheme, and different stanzas. It's like, okay, this rhymes with this rhymes with this, instead of having, the second line of this verse, all of a sudden, the fourth line, it's going to rhyme the exact same way, and this is going to keep that up. It's like 2-4, 2-4, 2-4, A, B, C, B, whatever it might be. And at times, it's like, yeah, that's great. It's a great rhyme scheme to go with. However, times it does get boring after a while if you're going to use it over and over and over again. Plus, the intricacies of using a different scheme on that can really create something that's absolutely incredible, to the point where it helps you get your point across, helps you get the message and the style of song that you want to get across even better than you would if you use that like straight up conventional, ABCB style. It's just,
Right.
At times it's something that people don't necessarily recognize right away or really recognize at all. However, they know exactly what it is, because at certain times, some songs that they listen to, they're going to have those different schemes. And it just makes so much sense. And you're wondering, why are they using this scheme? And all of a sudden, bing, bang, boom, it just sounds incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And Sean is
Here.
oh, he's there?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's
Oh,
there.
there he is. You have to use the photo of him on the drums now.
Or on the drums, or playing with his cats, whatever it might be, whatever I decide to put there. It'll be something wacky and ridiculous, or it'll be something that's really cool. I don't know. I haven't fully decided yet. When I put this all together, it will definitely be in there. honestly, it'll probably be wacky and ridiculous because that's always what, people watching videos, it's going to put a smile on their faces.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Devil's Envy as well, because taking a look at your Spotify right now, because I mean, as much as I'm not the biggest Spotify fan, it's probably like the layout for when it comes to music and what I can see what's been released, usually the best way to go with it, because I see the EP Dead Inside come out in 2016, the 3 singles from 2018, and really nothing since then. So the biggest question is what's coming next from you guys? Because I got a feeling you've got some pretty good stuff coming our way.
So a lot of those updates are on our either our website or social media, mainly like Instagram, because that's where we're very how do you say that? Like we're very
More
art
active?
driven. We're very art driven, so Instagram will have like a lot of our most recent stuff. Facebook is kind of like second in, so we'll kind of like whatever we've posted on Instagram, we'll go ahead and make sure it's done on like Facebook. But we have some updates coming. We have some singles coming in the spring. We don't have release dates yet because we're working with a distribution agency that kind of helps us map out like when the right time is, and we need a few weeks in between. Um, and a little surprise treat coming in sooner than that. So yeah, so far, like, yeah, we have two singles, and Instagram it's as announced, like one is called Night Stalkers and the other is The Ghost. um like I said, we actually wrote with our current lineup. The Ghost was actually helped written by our good friend Austin, which a lot, maybe some of your viewers are actually like regular fans of ours. That he had to step away for a break for a little bit. No official announcement because out of respect for him, but at least we're doing him the due courtesy of acknowledging that we still love the guy. He's still very much our family, and yeah. So the Ghost is a super awesome song that we worked on. We've actually played it live a few times, and it hits really hard for us, and it's really cool like to see the like fans like engage with it. It's a very fan engaging song, although it's very simplistic. And I'll explain because the lyrics were actually like co-written by my son, and he was like 9 at the time, like 2 years ago. It was like written, uh, so that song is going to be pretty interesting to get into like once it's out, and then we'll like kind of dive in on the hype of that. But those two so far, like I said, we took the last 6 months of the freaking lockdown pandemic and just wrote song upon song upon song. Like we were just writing and writing and writing. Like we just did not stop writing. And now it's turn of the new year. Like before the year ended, we were doing some behind the scenes stuff that once we get everything set in stone with it, we'll kind of announce what it is. We've been kind of hinting at it, but right now, like, yeah, we have the two singles coming out. Right now, it's the tentative date is March and April for those two songs come out. So
I think that might be and from my perspective, might be a good time to actually release some of the music as well, because given a look at what's happened with the coronavirus pandemic, and when it comes to live shows coming back in full force with the way that with the vaccine rollouts, like, yeah, there's going to be vaccines. However, taking a look at festivals that have planned for 2021 or people that are planning tours for 2021, I'm talking actual, arena tours or actual tours that you'd expect to have had to happen in 2019. I'm not seeing any of that until at the earliest May at this point. So releasing something in March and April might actually work out for the best for you, due to the fact that a lot of bands that have been working on music are probably holding on to it to release until they can go out and play live and promote it that way. There are some bands that aren't doing that because they've had stuff ready. I mean, there's a lot of bands that are coming out with stuff in February and some in March. A lot of February though, from what I saw. So if coming out with March and April, you might be hitting the exact perfect time to release some of this stuff. And when you're talking about Ghosts and your 9-year-old son writing some of those lyrics and contributing to it, I'm gonna be real curious to see how that one works out, because it kind of has more of that like crowd pleaser feel to it and a little bit more of a simplistic style. Having your 9-year-old kind of help contribute to the lyrics on that, just with the way the mind of a 9-year-old works, it has a more of a simplistic nature to it. So it might fit in incredibly, perfect within that song structure. I have no idea because it's the first time I'm hearing about it. So
yeah.
again, this is all remains to be seen. So I'm gonna be very interested to see how that happens.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense song. And to kind of, let you in on it, it's about sleep paralysis, and he's been suffering from that for since he was like much younger. And it basically, like, my son and I will actually spend hours at the studio. He's helped us write the Beetlejuice track. If you can find it's on Spotify as well. I don't normally follow our Spotify numbers anymore because there's just been a lot of stuff I don't agree with that company. um, and there's so many of my colleagues that just love them, and they love Ali and whoever does the playlists. And I'm just like, cool, bro. Our numbers are killing it on Apple Music, so that's what I'm pushing. So, like, I appreciate Apple Music because, one, they don't tell you or the fans how many followers they have. Like, I don't think that matters, first of all. So that's why, going back to that, like, Apple Music is where I hone in all our analytics and what we're pushing, because it just makes sense for me to do it that way. And so, yeah, going back to, where we're pushing this stuff is like, yeah. So my kid helped me write Ghost and Beetlejuice, and that little kid is like, he's gonna turn into some producer when he's older because he's definitely helped with quite a bit, especially with lyrics. He's a great storyteller, and it just it felt right, and I presented the song to the guys, like, we got to play this song live. Like, wait, what? It's not even like fully like recorded. It's like, no, we have to play it. It's cool, trust me. And it starts out with like a little guitar riff, and then it kicks in, and it's just fireworks like from then on out. So it's a great song to like crank up, in your stereo.
Well, I'm gonna be even more interested to hear this for a couple of reasons. One is because if your son also has more writing credits than just that, I mean, there's definitely gonna be something there. Secondly, if it deals with something that he has dealt with directly as well, along with yourself, then again, what I was talking about with Dead Inside, where it comes from a place of real inspiration, it comes from a place of real events and real difficulties at times. That emotion is going to come out, that realness is going to come out, and people are going to feel it. So it definitely makes a lot of sense. And now I'm even more intrigued to listen to it when it comes out. And another thing I'm going to mention is when it comes to Spotify, where I do know people that are very big in it. The only reason I always bring it up on the podcast is because most of the people that I know listen to this podcast, they use Spotify. So when it comes to looking at certain numbers and certain things going on with them, I always end up going to that because it's kind of just a connection with the audience. However, I don't actually I don't pay for Spotify. I still download all my stuff because I have to use it for certain things. And when it comes to Spotify with things that they've been doing, especially more towards independent artists and restricting what's being like promoting them, and all of a sudden what's going out with them now with everything that happened with DistroKid, because there's a band I've interviewed that's going to come out right before the podcast is going to be right before yours when it comes out.
Yeah.
They had their whole entire album removed because of it. And it's just it's a whole mess. And then what Spotify is trying to do with, alrighty, now here we go. We're gonna do this in-house thing where you can promote your music band on our podcast, on our playlist and whatnot. However, if you want to do that now, we're gonna pay you even less. So it's kind of like it's like a thing where independent bands are going to get completely screwed over by this because they're going to depend on some actual royalty rates, which are being paid very low right now, and also they're being paid less, where bands that have labels behind them are going to be able to eat that cost and really promote for the long run.
Right. Yeah. That's, at the end of the day, there's always got to be some type of give. I do feel for the bands that do want, independence. And then there are bands that I know that, they have these great record deals, and some of them, they either, they don't get it, or sometimes, yeah, they do understand it, but then, yeah, there are labels that are just completely out for themselves. uh, the the worst side of being invested, to a bank, because that's what they are. They're a bank that can help promote you, and with connections that have been built for maybe 2-3 decades. A lot of those record label heads on like the newer record labels that are major, they've been around for a long time, and so they know how to get their way. So they know, they know what it takes. They know what they have to spend, and they are spending a lot, like millions, to push a couple artists and to get very little return on investment. And the artists, sometimes they don't understand that. So yeah, I do side with them though. I get it. Um, so on both sides, it's tough to be independent, and it might be great to be on a major label, but it's you're an employee at that point. So you're working for them. So basically, they don't understand. It's that you have to give them publishing, you have to give them rights to mastering, because without that, they wouldn't be able to push it to whoever they wanted to. They would have to keep asking the writer for permission. So they, at the end of the day, once all that's done, like, just make sure you lawyer up and sign a deal that works for you and the other person involved, because you know it ideally everybody wants a sweet deal. Everybody wants to be able to say, give me $1 million for stuff that I'm coming up with, and I'll think about maybe giving you 5%. Hell no, that's not going to work. So that's, a lot of your viewers, listeners, or even other fellow band members, like, just do your research and understand that this, it's, you can sit on the soapbox and complain all day, but if you're not looking at it from a business standpoint, like, if you've never learned how to manage a business, period, that's not a small business, and you don't know what it's like to manage a business that's generating more than 100K a year, like, you're not going to understand why labels take the percentages they take. So there's a lot to consider. We can enter. That's definitely a Joe Rogan style discussion type podcast for sure.
Oh God, yeah. And
Roll a
Angel,
couple of fatties and talk about that.
oh
Yeah,
God, yeah.
that's hours worth of caveats on both sides, but it's a catch-22. It's people wanted, people were tired of paying, what, 15, what was it, 12, $15 for an album, because the argument was like, well, I only like one song in it. Okay, well, how would you know that? Because you haven't bought the album yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, now you get downloading. Okay, cool. Regardless of where you stand on that issue, obviously, back when me and Angel were kids, the big thing was Lars and Metallica suing Napster, and listen, I had sympathy for both sides. They're both technically correct. I mean, Lars was like, listen, you're stealing people's music, and a lot of people laughed him out of the out of the room at the time. It's like, oh, you're just a greedy millionaire, fuck you, man. You just want more money. Maybe you did, but at the end of the day, what has happened since then is you've shifted the balance of power even more in the label favor. And I'm not shitting on labels. They are running businesses. They have to do what they have to do. That doesn't mean everything they're doing is correct. There's a lot of artists that sign deals and get shelved for any number of reasons.
And they can't use those songs after that.
Write-offs, tax purposes, whatever. There's a lot of artists that just get shit on. And unfortunately, we gave that power. And listen, I'm not against downloading. I think there's a big positive in it. I think there's a big positive in people sharing music on digital platforms. Look at Post Malone. That guy, even in an era where the balance of power in this industry is with those who have made it and those who have connections and power, he uploaded something on SoundCloud and now he's the biggest rapper in the world. What has he got, like 60 million listeners on Spotify or some shit? Like, it's insane. And this is a guy. This is the guy that started in a metal band. Like,
yeah,
so
monthly listeners 42 million.
What's that?
42 million monthly listeners as of the recording of this podcast.
Yeah, it's absurd, man. It's just, and good for him, dude. Listen, good for the people that are making it. However, if we're going to choose all together to go down this path of, we're not going to buy CDs, we're not going to buy, physical product for the music that we want to consume. Okay, well, you have to support your artists in a different way. You're buying merch. Maybe you buy a single every now and then. Who knows? I like Spotify. I like Apple Music. I love streaming services. I use them. So in some ways, like everybody else, I'm a hypocrite. The difference is that you have to understand at some point, if we want artists to be like they were and not mass produced, and I won't name any names, but mass produced garbage that advertises to the lowest common denominator of society, you're gonna have to start looking at this issue and start accepting the fact that in some way you're going to come full circle and start to financially support the bands and the artists that you want to become big, so that they can create more music, so they don't become these bands that put out an album, can't financially afford to do it, and then you never hear from them again. So it is what it is. They're like Angel said, that's a huge 3-4 hour Joe Rogan podcast of constant caveats that you have to level on both sides of the argument. But I think if labels would step up, especially, and start marketing things that aren't just easily digestible pop, and there's nothing wrong with pop. I listen to a lot of that shit, and I have no shame in saying it. I listen to a lot of country. I listen to a lot of span the spectrum. I'll listen to it, but if we want to get back to where we were, to where you had rappers and you had rock guys and you had pop artists and you had the advents of, Michael Bublé and all these people coming up at the same time and being big and everybody enjoying a slice of the pie, you're going to have to put pressure and start, financially supporting the people that you want to succeed. And I know it's tough. Obviously, this is a different situation in the COVID era with people out of work and not being able to, pay bills and stuff. But when this stuff comes back, that's going to be a serious conversation that artists and fans alike have to broach, and we're going to have to talk about it sincerely.
Absolutely. So. And when it comes down to it, with both of what you guys said, both you, Angel, and Sean, I want to applaud you both, because when you guys took a look at these issues, one thing that you did that I never see anymore is you had your side of it, but you also looked at the other side and you understood where the other side was coming from, where the Spotify side is coming from, where the label side is coming from, so that when you're talking about, it's like, okay, I get why this is happening. I get why it's happening. Is it the best situation right now? No. However, if you understand both sides, can there be something that's done about it? Absolutely. That's where you can start to really figure it out. And Sean, with what you said about putting pressure in order to, make some of these bands that you want to see rise to the top, the best way to do that is to vote with your wallet, honestly, because if you're going to be supporting bands that you like, instead of just supporting just whatever the heck happens and then just having your money go to the artists that these labels want the money to go to, if you're going to support these artists that you want to support directly, that money's not going to go to Spotify or these labels, and it's going to end up forcing them to change their way of thinking. When it affects their bottom line, like any business, they're going to have to change their way of thinking. Or if a new player comes into the system and completely disrupts everything, that's what ends up happening. I mean, hell, when I was in college, I studied econ. This was basically what I looked at the whole entire time, in a completely different light, more in a worldview, country sense, but it was the exact same thing. And I absolutely love the fact that you guys really took a look into both sides of the argument as well and understood both sides. And when it comes to bands that do have those record deals, yeah, they're gonna end up pushing more towards what the labels are going for, because it's gonna help them out. When it comes to the independent bands, they're gonna pushing more towards what they want because it's gonna help them out. It makes total sense. Myself though, I always kind of want to push where it's gonna help independent bands, because how I look at it is, every band, every artist, whatever it might have been, they all started out somewhere and they all started out independent. So how are these bands going to be able to rise to the top if, there's really no way for them to do it? And how are you going to find about these great new acts if there's too many gatekeepers in the way? So I'm always a huge proponent of, helping out the independent acts, because how else are we going to find out about them if we're going to have too many barriers of entry in order to get to know them?
Right. Well, you're dealing with a market that has no competition in it. It's people that have made it and people that have they're a very small group of people when you think about it. How many major labels are there? How many big influential agencies are there in the music business? There's not a lot when you really think about it. and
And it's
those are the gate.
monopolized too.
Yeah, those are not those are the gatekeepers of the industry. So, I mean, this starts at the local level too. I mean, we live in a culture where it's like, I mean, we used to deal with this, and again, I understand where people are coming from, man. Um, you got a lot of people where like you're playing a show, and you got everybody and your mother asking for free tickets. It was like, listen, man, I don't come to your job and ask for free shit. I know this is a hobby, this is art, and 9 times out of 10, it's not going to go anywhere professional, but it's just the principle of, listen, I'm playing a show, you're coming to enjoy the show or not, and you may think my band sucks. Who cares? Point is people are going to have to start paying for um for art again, and valuing that as a thing. And I'm not asking for like, you know, $50 covers. People have a problem paying $5 covers to see 6 bands a night. That's hours and hours and hours of music. Not all of them are good. Okay, well, the Foo Fighters were not amazing when they first started. Now they started after Nirvana, so they were a little bit of head start. Okay, we'll back that up and argue that for Nirvana. David Grohl's quote was like, "I wish bands would get in a garage and suck again." Because that's how you get to that level. Nirvana became Nirvana because they were a bunch of dudes that had shit to say and a passion to do it, and they sucked ass together until they got good. And people don't want to pay for it. Listen, I get that, but I go to local shows and I don't. Let's say the band I'm watching isn't particularly great. They may not be bad. They may just be a little bit unpolished. It takes time. Even the best musicians that people idolize, at one point in time, they were playing local shows, sucking ass, but people were there to enjoy the night.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, it is what it is. You can't have it both ways. We can't be fans of music. And like I said, I understand the arguments. I'm not saying the other side of the argument of what I believe is stupid or they don't understand what's going on. But you have to look at these topics and really look at the big picture. If we're not going to support artists at the local level, how the hell are we going to support artists at the bigger level when you have gatekeepers controlling who you listen to and if something is good or not? Like, award shows are bullshit. That doesn't mean everybody who gets a award didn't deserve it, but for the most part, it's bullshit.
Yeah, for the most part with those award shows, it's do those people make good music? And to some people, yes, to some people, no. But there's a lot of times where there's great music that's out there that never gets anywhere recognized because the gatekeepers don't allow it. I mean, I was taking a look at the Grammys like for this upcoming year, seeing, all right, what's song of the year for rock song or song of the year, regardless. And I'm looking through and I'm just thinking, okay, there's a lot of songs that these labels consistently push heavy and hard, going crazy on it, and that's why they're on there. But a song like, I mean, one of the best songs I think I've ever heard my entire life, which is Popular Monster by Falling in Reverse, never even got a consideration for it because the gatekeepers don't like Falling in Reverse or Ronnie Radke, and they don't want him they wouldn't want him anywhere near the awards because it might pertain to a bad image or something. So there's a whole bunch of action. I mean, that we get in a whole talk about that as well. But when it comes to the gatekeepers, it's the internet is a great tool in order to try and neutralize that. However, those gatekeepers are going to try and hold on as much as possible because they made it to the top of the mountain. They didn't get there by just appearing. I'm like with the labels, those labels that were created from the ground and they worked hard in order to get to that position. I totally understand that. And they're going to want to do whatever they can to keep that position. So with the internet where everyone has access to pretty much almost anything with a click of a button, they're going to have to try and find a way to make sure that they still stay on top somehow. I totally understand that.
Yeah.
And it's just something where, in a way, it's kind of got to find a way to bypass those gatekeepers in a certain way. And
right.
how that gets done, I mean, that's still all up for debate and discussion and for trial and error.
Well, I'm going to be as bold to say this, but it's like, if it doesn't happen for us this year, it's because maybe, it's gonna. I mean, and you you could take this as however you wish. I've left it up to interpretation to as many people as I've said this to, including our bandmates. I'm like, this is the year, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But this is it, and if something doesn't come of like what we've worked on, it's because we didn't try hard enough. So we're definitely going for it, definitely for sure. Whether there's gatekeepers or not, I know some of them, and a lot of them like literally laughed in my face. Some of them, shut doors, and some of them even just forgot who I was. And especially having done favors upon favors for free, um, you know, numerous times. And not to sound like that, okay, this guy's coming from a place. No, I've worked my back off, to where I'm at now. And whether the band has blown up at this point or not, it's going to happen. And when it does, they're all going to be sorry that they turned their backs on us. Like, that's no joke. Whether they're gatekeepers of it or they were trying to get to a place to where they saw us as a threat because of what we were trying to accomplish, we're pretty much level it out. We're all trying to get the same thing. Basically, being able to pay our rent or mortgage with our passion, because a man that works without passion, it's unfulfilling. So this is what we're doing, and and we're going for it. And so whether you heard it here first or not, like whether anything happens with the name Devil's Envy or not, whether it's associated with myself or Sean, whoever's a part of it, whether it's Devil's Envy or whatever it's, in the future, like it's because this year, for some reason, I don't know how or why I feel it so, but it's gonna happen. And like I said, and it's all because of faith and in our own works as far as musicianship goes, and and what we believe in. So that's pretty much what I have to say in regards to like those types of people in the industry. What you want to call them, captains or kings of the industry or gatekeepers. Um, I have a not so much a sour taste, but just like okay, like that that moment where he's like, okay, I see what you're about. You showed your true colors. Now it's my turn. So that's what the overall um, motive is for this band collectively. You know,
Kind of like thinking of it in economic terms, you're kind of using a second mover advantage in that way because the kings or the titans of the music industry, they move first on you guys. So now you know. They
right?
don't know what to expect from you now because they think they know what to expect. All of a sudden, 2021 is going to end up coming closer to an end, in about 11 months or so, and they could be potentially looking back and just kicking themselves because they didn't give you guys a chance. They didn't actually look to see what was going on. And all of a sudden, the people that had always been there for you are going to be the ones that are still going to be there for you while they're trying to jump in and be like, oh, we want to get a piece of Devil's Envy. We want to work with you guys. We want to do this, that, this, that. Well, why'd you shut the door on our faces a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
And they're going to try and sweet talk you as much as possible as well.
And yeah, and they have, and I'm like, dude, I have nothing to offer now. And to on the outside eye, some of them might think like, okay, you're doing so many great things, and but us, we're doing the inner workings day in and day out for this band. Like whether we still have day jobs, we treat this like it's getting there, it's getting there. We've never really had to um come to a point where we were that, like, maybe when if I was like 19, 20 years old, I had quit like my part-time job to pursue being in a band. But now that I'm in my 30s, I have a family. A lot of us have responsibilities. Paul has a family, Brian has responsibilities, so does Sean, running his parents company. uh, we were still fortunate to be able to push this the way we have been without letting everything else that's important in our lives go. On the contrary, it's motivated us to work even harder in our secular work and take pride in it at the same time, while showing everyone, like, look, we're still pushing this every step of the way. Every year has gotten better for us, and there hasn't been, although, like, if you notice, yeah, numbers wise, social media, it's like kind of on the lacking side compared to some. But to us, there's always been a successful step forward. There has never ever been a step backwards with this band. Like every step of the way, it's like the next song is better, the next video, the next type of content, the artwork, the photos, it all ties together. So it's um it's it's deeming successful every step of the way. Maybe not on a grand scale, like, oh my God, that band hit it big, and it's because we're building longevity. We're not trying to be that one hit wonder band that, just because we hit a cover song and then we had a label to dump millions in it so that it's played everywhere. It's not that type of situation. It's more of like we're gradually building at the right pace to gather the right people to when it does build on a massive scale, which as we all hope it does. It'll last. It'll last, and it won't be as forgotten as some things. As like, wow, this band just blew up out of nowhere, and they just came out this year or last year, and next thing you know, 3 years later, where are they? Literally, like what? Any artist that you've heard of that has blown up that way has literally been a quick lit skyrocket, and that rocket falls. Like we're the mountain. This band is a mountain. It takes a long time to build, but it's done the right way.
Exactly, and it's the bands that build like that are the bands that have that longevity and the bands that stick around for so long. And when it comes to, because I kind of want to close on this because I want to be respectful of your time. So we've gone over an hour and 15 minutes of, and
Although
like honestly, with what we talk about with everything with different
We're
labels
good.
and Spotify,
Keep
I
it
mean,
going.
I again, I just want because I know at a certain point, like if I go way over, if it's not like a total
yeah,
like special episode, I know people will fall off. Just again, that's just the way the metrics work now. So I'm like, I just don't want to end up going too crazy on this.
save those for like when you interview POD or Nonpoint, man. I'll put you in touch. They're dope guys. You got to have them on your show, man.
I mean, I would absolutely love to have that happen. I'm working with a couple of people now to try and get some acts on that or some bands on that I had. Like, if I would have thought about having these bands on like 4 or 5 months ago, I would have been just like laughing at myself. And now I'm looking like this is actually potentially happening or is happening. So we'll see what happens. Like, again, we'll see what happens there. However, when it comes to like, I would love to even go even more in depth with that. Like, again, with everything going with the labels, Spotify, music industry, and independent bands, but I feel like that would have to be like a special like 3 hour long podcast, or and I get even more people in on it. Just sit down, everyone. If you want to smoke something during it, smoke something during it. Me, I'd start drinking beer during it. We could just have a blast of a conversation. I'd want to get even more people on that as well to get even more perspectives. I'd love to have you guys on for that one as well because you guys think about both sides of the argument, so that'd be fantastic. But really want to close out with this where when you're talking about making sure that you build for the longevity and with everything else you have got going on in your guys' lives right now with different responsibilities, it's the drive, it's the passion, it's just that consistent wanting to go for it, which is it's gonna take some time. And you guys know this, it takes time to build on that. But when you do end up hitting on that, then the longevity is there. Then that whole stake is there to the point where you're not going to be that, flash in the pan kind of band that hits on one song or hits on a cover song and all of a sudden someone pumps millions into them, and by the time 3 years later down the line comes, it's like, oh, they're playing at this venue maybe that you expected to play before they got big. It's like, well, why are they playing there now when they used to be playing there? I mean, it happens. I'm not saying
There's
that these
recent
bands
examples of that too, man. Like, not to cut you off, but like there's Linkin Park was not a flash in the like they didn't just get signed and then Hybrid Theory came out and they're a legendary band. It's not how it happened.
exactly.
I know the guy who signed them. We're not personal friends or anything. I've hung out with him. Jeff Blue, he's the guy who found Macy Gray, bunch of different people, wide range of different artists. That band did not just come out, get signed, put out 2 awesome albums, and then boom, it's Linkin Park, one of the best-selling rock bands of all time, especially in the modern era. It's not how it happened. You had a band that was not called Linkin Park, that had a different singer, that was discovered by Jeff. They put Chester in that band, which we're all thankful for, obviously. And he helped get that first album going. and he pulled that talent out of that band. So there's a lot of good guys in the industry that have a lot of power. And we need more people like that again that are willing to take risk on people, because Linkin Park did not just show up at a record label and get signed. That's not how it happened. They had a real tough time.
Yeah.
And then when it broke, every person that passed on them, I guarantee you, is still shitting their pants that they never signed that band.
Oh,
Right.
easily.
Avenged Sevenfold, that band, one of mine and Angel's favorite band that we bonded on when we first met originally, before we were even friends, they built a following through the club scene. They sound nothing like what they used to sound like, but
Yeah.
they built a family atmosphere around that sound. It was grungy, it was dirty, like fast punk metal. They did it in California. They built this almost cult following. Then they put out Sounding the Seventh Trumpet. Okay, not the world's best album, but it's an album that I love. You know, if you bring that to like a certain music critics, be like, oh, it's dirty, it's not mixed well, it's this and that. And okay, well, who cares? That's not what that album's about, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like going to a Marvel movie and expecting it to be some huge Oscar winner,
Right.
with a huge in-depth plot that's so intricate. That's not what it's about. They built that following over lyrics and like an overall vibe of the band that people felt comfortable with, and they could, come home from school like I did and feel like they had a little bit of a home with different people that they've never met, which is again what I was talking about before. And they built on that, and somebody took a risk on them, and look where they are now. They're one of the only modern, whether you still consider them metal or just rock now, whether you think they sold out, doesn't matter. They're one of the only ones that come from that era that are playing arenas and stadiums. It is what it is. And if we want that as a community, as a rock and a metal community, if we want that as just supporting independent artists, whether you have an independent artist that's like an indie soft rock, whatever the artist is, you need that community background. And I think it's starting to build again, because everything equalizes. We've had a long time of, again, music that everybody likes, easily digestible music. Sometimes it's fun to be drunk at a club and just party to some easily digestible song that's pumped out through the radio. Nothing wrong with it. But if you want your favorite artist to get there, it's going to take a concerted effort on our part as fans and musicians, and it's going to take a concerted effort on people in the industry not always going for the easy payday where it's a formulaic transaction of, I take this person, I have this song written for them by a third party, this blows up, they're a money-making machine. As soon as they stop making money, nobody gives a shit about them anymore. Cool. Is that how we want music to be? No.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of like, what do you want? Do you want those flash in the pan kind of artists?
Yeah.
That you're gonna be, you could consistently sign, and then on the outside of that would be the reverse of that. If you're consistent signing those artists, you're gonna end up kicking yourself because you were the one that passed on Linkin Park, or they're the next band that's gonna be like that. So when
you're dealing with the Tinder of music, my friend, it's window shopping at this point.
Yeah,
that might be one of the best descriptions I've ever heard of it. Oh my god, I'm gonna start using that, my friend. That is beautiful. And as a community, as everyone for rock and metal, when it comes to supporting artists, whether they already are signed or whether they're independent, we have that family vibe going on. We know that from live shows. So let's keep that going. Let's keep that building, because then the music that we like, the music that we love to support, that you're going to continue to support, is going to end up rising to the top one way or another, because that's where your attention is. That's where your money's going. And these big labels, these record companies, they're going to notice that, and they're going to follow along with that, so they can somehow become a part of that as well. And it's going to only, and by us doing that, by us supporting all these independent acts and help supporting rock and metal as a family, what we can do together is absolutely incredible. So
yeah,
Let's make it happen. And I'm gonna be keeping tabs on you guys in 2021 because
Thanks, man.
Angel,
Good.
with what you're
Thank you,
saying,
man.
with
Appreciate
what
it.
you're saying, holy shit! I mean, you're getting me excited just because I can hear the passion in your voice. I can hear the concentrated passion that you want this. I can even see in your eyes when you're talking about it too. So there's that fire there. I just want to see that fire, go from whatever it's burning right now to, that 5-alarm fire where everyone's watching like,
Fuck,
oh
man.
my
You
God.
just took the red pill, man. Basically, you take the red pill and you step into the depths of what
I'm
we're
truly
about.
seeing how far the rabbit hole
maximum
goes.
realm of devil's envy, then you're stuck.
I've truly seen how far the rabbit hole goes. So as we close out, I want to ask you guys this. So when it comes to people looking to get into Devil's Envy right now, where can they find you guys? Because they're going to want to know. They're going to want to find you guys. They're going to want to listen to your stuff. They're going to want to follow you guys on social media. Where can we find you?
For sure. You can find us on Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, and Tidal as well. A lot of our updates will go up on like Instagram and as well as our website, devilsenvymusic.com. And you can also find us on Bands in Town, which will be updated as soon as the live touring industry opens up. You'll hear more from that. But you can always keep up with us day to day on Instagram with Devil's Envy.
And for everyone listening, when it comes to that, I'm going to make it even easier on you guys like I do with every band that's on the podcast. So when it comes to finding these bands, social media, their website, Bands in Town, getting some merch, support these guys, which you should. And when it comes to listening to these guys, Apple Music specifically, but also include Spotify in there as well. Just take a look at the description of the video on YouTube or the podcast on Spotify, Podcast, Google Play, iHeartRadio. I'm going to have all of the links there for you guys. So it's a one-click, one-stop shop. All you got to do is tap that link and then bing, bang, boom, you're already on your way. So I'm making it as easy as possible for you guys. And if for some random reason you decide, oh, I'm going to just, I'm going to follow this band, but then you forget about it, I'm not going to let you. Trust me. If you follow MSOTD Rocks or anything with the Chord Progression podcast, I'm not going to let you. So just be aware of that.
Nice. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for having us.
I appreciate you guys being on. Thanks for being on the podcast. And I want to end with 3 things. One is because the conversation that we had, now I'm kind of inspired to potentially do a whole entire larger roundtable podcast with a bunch more independent artists or even artists that have been signed as well that I could get on to really talk about all this stuff and go like a 2-3 hour thing. If that does end up happening, I will be in contact with you guys. So I want both of you on there with the way you guys think. Second is when live shows return, when I have a chance to see you guys live, there's always something I like to do, or I like to promise at least, and I have a whole list of this, and I call it the First Rounds on Me Club, which is basically, I want to see you guys live, and when I do get a chance to see you guys live, I love the fact you guys are on the podcast. I love the fact I got to see you guys live, so First Rounds on me.
Sounds good, man.
Down with that.
And the last bit is the goodbye. And I don't like to say goodbye because, hell, I love having you guys on the podcast. I'm going to keep tabs on you for 2021 and beyond. And I already promised the First Rounds on me to you guys when I see you guys live for the first time. I'd love to have the podcast again. So I can't end with a goodbye. That just seems wrong. So I'm going to end with my favorite thing in the world. See you later.
See you later.
See you later, buddy.
Well, folks, that was my interview with Sean and Angel from the band Devil's Envy, and oh my lord, was this absolutely fantastic. Man, the MVK group has been absolutely fantastic on this. I cannot get enough of them, and again, when it comes to Devil's Envy, I want to have these guys back on. I want to have Sean and Angel back on for a special podcast, potentially come up in the next couple of months, March or April, where we really dive deep into the music industry as a whole, when it comes to independent bands, when it comes to newer bands, when it comes to Spotify, everything about that, and really going deep to really understand where independent bands are coming from, try and figure out where record labels are coming from, and just get an understanding of, basically the question is, how can we help to make sure that independent bands really get the chance that they deserve to rise to the top? So that one would be incredible to have, and I'm going to plan on it for March or April. And will Sean and Angel be a part of that? I want them to be a part of that so badly, and I know you guys want to too. So please keep up with Devil's Envy, because 2021 seems to be poised to be their breakout year. Hopefully it is, and if it isn't, then 2022 might be, but we're hoping this year. And on that note, that's going to be for me today, guys. Thank you for watching and listening to the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by MSOTD Rocks, where rock and metal thrive. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one of these episodes. The big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah!